This is CBC Vancouver News.
Whose port is this? Our port! Whose jobs are they? Our jobs!
Port workers in BC return to the picket lines after their union leadership rejects a tentative deal.
The economy just can't sustain this.
Dismay for business leaders and a warning from Canada's Labour Minister.
Not using AC in my suite due to the age of the building.
A BC man says his landlord warns him not to plug in an air conditioner, worries about heat and eviction. And reunited after 24 years, a married couple's grinding journey to be together in BC. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Just days after work resumed at Canada's largest and busiest port here in Vancouver, workers are back on the picket lines. Their union announced earlier today it has rejected a tentative agreement reached just days ago. The CBC's Georgie Smythe has more on the fallout.
The pickets are back up, meaning 7,400 workers have once again stopped work in ports around BC. This development came 5 days after the Employers Association and the union appeared to come to an agreement for a 4-year deal to end the 13-day work stoppage. The union told CBC News that it didn't feel the tentative agreement it was presented last week went far enough to protect their jobs now or into the future, and said the issue of outside contractors and their demands on wage increases and concerns about the cost of living have not been heard. A statement by the BC Maritime Employers Association said it had ratified the agreement presented by the federal government's mediator last Thursday, adding the tentative agreement did include provisions addressing the union's concerns about contractors and training. It's unclear how long this latest work stoppage could last, but the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade said last week that the 13-day strike disrupted an estimated $9.7 billion in trade. They believe the strike prevented more than 60,000 shipping containers from coming into ports, and that number could balloon to 250,000 if the strike went on till the end of July. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce says the impact of these continued work stoppages is unsustainable for the economy.
The economy just can't sustain this. It's $800 million a day. We're approaching $10 billion in disrupted trade. This will affect the Canadian GDP for months to come. It will disrupt employers. It will disrupt family businesses. It will be felt by consumers throughout the economy, throughout the country. It's 25 to 30% of our national trade flows through these West Coast ports.
The union says it's now back at the bargaining table and will stay there as long as it takes. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Canada's Labour Minister, meanwhile, says the strike cannot go on. In a statement earlier tonight, Seamus O'Regan says workers and employers across Canada cannot face further disruption on the scale we saw last week. Therefore, we are looking at all options. We will have more to say on this tomorrow. We should not be here, he continues. The deal presented to the parties was the result of a constructive and substantive collective bargaining process. We have been patient. We have respected the collective bargaining process, but we need our ports operating. A BC man says he's gotten a warning from his landlord. Do not install an air conditioner in your suite. His situation has others pushing back as temperatures climb in our province. Ellie Patarga has more on worries about facing the heat or eviction.
And it just comes apart like this.
Ryan Laniel has been using this portable air conditioner for 3 years. In summer heat waves, it's a lifesaver.
I've seen it up to 38 degrees inside my suite, and that has been with everything closed off during the heat bubbles.
Last month, Laniel received a notice warning against having ACs. The New Westminster Tenants Union says 8 buildings, including Laniel's, received the same notice. It says tenants would be liable for any damage caused by AC units. The warning comes as the province announced they would give out 8,000 free air conditioning units to seniors and vulnerable people.
First, I was kind of concerned, and I heeded the warning, because of course he states everything is, terms of wrecking your lease.
In the 2021 heat dome, more than 600 people died of heat-related illnesses. The coroner's report says most deaths were seniors and occurred indoors without adequate cooling systems. CBC reached out to the owner of the building, Dinesh Chand. Chand's lawyers replied in an email saying Lanil's building is too old to manage the electrical load from AC units.
The concern electrically may be that it would put additional demand because these buildings were never designed considering air conditioners and the loads that they can carry.
Rinch says it's possible for the building to be impacted if many air conditioners were running at once. He says it could cost owners hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to retrofit the buildings. Tenants advocates say that shouldn't be on renters.
I think that the province needs to install better, clearer and more cohesive rental and tenant protections and mandate landlords to make the changes in their buildings that are necessary.
In an emailed statement, BC's housing minister said he hopes landlords and tenants will work together to find solutions. Lunil says electricians told him his AC unit shouldn't cause any issues.
Unless there's something seriously wrong with the infrastructure of the building, but then at that point, is that my responsibility?
By keeping his AC, Lunil says he could be jeopardizing his tenancy. But with hot summers ahead, keeping cool is a risk he's willing to take. Ali Pataraga, CBC News, New Westminster.
A wildfire near Cranbrook has forced the evacuation of the First Nations community of Akum. 35 properties in the regional district of East Kootenay have also been placed on order. The fire broke out yesterday and has grown to 800 hectares. As Corey Bullock reports, people forced to leave are wondering if they'll have homes to return to.
We have several homes that have burnt to the ground. Like they're just not there anymore. Standing chimney and that's it. And so those families have literally lost everything.
Joe Pierre is the chief of the Akum community, where more than 50 homes have been evacuated. He says it's unclear which homes have been lost.
Every agency that I can think of has been reaching out to us. So we really are right now in assess mode. Like we're just trying to get a handle of what kind of help we do need.
Cheryl Casimir describes the feeling in her community this morning.
Stressed. Stressed because of the unknown.
She and others still don't know when they'll be able to return home.
I'm feeling a little apprehensive. Still don't know if my house is standing, but happy to be safe and sound and just being positive and optimistic.
In the meantime, Casimir says crews are doing everything they can to keep the community safe.
The community as a whole is doing the best that they can to support us. At least we've got food. We have Red Cross on site who is assisting evacuees.
The suspected cause of the fire is a down power line, leaving nearly 400 people in the region without power since Monday.
It's definitely a trying time for sure for all of us.
As of this afternoon, the St. Mary's River fire is listed at 800 hectares. There are wildfire crews, heavy equipment, aviation crews, and structure protection on scene. And as BC enters its most destructive season to date, Chief Pierre says it's a wake-up call. He says prescribed burning and other fire mitigation efforts need to be a priority.
Prescribed burning needs to happen all over our province. The wildland interface needs to be taken care of.
For now, residents here are left to wait, watch, and worry. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
Well, that blaze is one of more than 400 burning across BC. Now, the provincial government is outlining a plan that includes support from the Canadian Armed Forces. Joel Ballard has that part of the story.
This summer has already become the most destructive wildfire season on record. More than 1.39 million hectares of BC have been scorched. And today, the Minister of Emergency Management didn't mince her words when she said, "We still have a long road ahead of us." On Sunday, Canadian Armed Forces soldiers landed in BC to help. The province says the military will be directly responding to the fires. Today, 75 soldiers were sent to Vanderhoof, and tomorrow, another 75 will be deployed to Burns Lake in northeastern BC.
The support is substantial, it's robust, and it will give British Columbia the tools and personnel that it needs to keep people safe.
The Ministry of Agriculture also says the drought and wildfires have led to a hay and feed shortage. Cattle farmers and ranchers are struggling to source enough food for their livestock, and they're being forced to make really difficult decisions around their futures, deciding whether to thin or even sell their herds.
This is not an easy time to be a farmer. With fires, floods, drought, extreme heat and extreme cold, animal diseases, and a pandemic, all within the last 3 years.
And the wildfire and drought conditions aren't expected to ease over the coming weeks. The province says there's more hot and dry weather in the forecast, with little rainfall and higher than average temperatures, all of which could add even more fuel to the fires. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
To other news now, reunions at airports are a pretty common sight. But one at YVR on Saturday morning was almost a quarter century in the making. As a married couple, Paramjit Basanti and his wife Charanjit have lived half a world apart for more than 2 decades because of endless immigration roadblocks. But as Belle Puri shows us, the Surrey man and his Indian wife are finally together in BC.
The journey from Punjab to BC is lengthy, but it shouldn't take 24 years. That's how long Charanjit Basanti has been apart from her Canadian husband. My life, the one I've endured, only God knows, she says. The couple married in India in 1999. The following year, a Canadian immigration adjudicator decided the marriage wasn't genuine. It seemed the two knew little about one another.
So I would say there was some level of cultural insensitivity because they did not understand certain things about each other when they first got married, but in a lot of arranged marriage situations, that is how it is. The couple develops more understanding of each other over time. That doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't want to intend to be together right from the get-go.
Over 2 decades, 5 Canadian permanent residence requests were denied. A 6th try by Charanjit's husband was approved last September. He's 72 now, she's 55. Other than regular phone calls and a couple of holidays in India, they've lived half a world apart.
It's a confirmation of permanent residence for Charanjit Kaur Basanti, finally. Date stamped, finally. July 15th, 2023, here in Vancouver. It's a very happy ending. Bittersweet to some degree, of course. I mean, that's almost a quarter century of processing. The longest I've ever seen, but they're very happy to be together. Of course.
The government won't comment on individual cases.
It says to protect the integrity of the immigration system, officers have to determine if a marriage is genuine. As a first defense against marriage fraud, PR applicants have to prove they didn't marry just to get status here.
Fraudulent marriages are usually uncovered quickly.
This is an example of a family, a couple that was genuine but got trapped in the system, got put into that pool of individuals that participate in fraud even though they were genuine. So you could argue that the system can be overzealous disproportionately to people that don't deserve it. This is an egregious example.
An access of information request has been filed for details on immigration's change of heart.
So when Mr. Basanti got married, I would have been 6 years old. So, you know, they've been waiting a very long time. He pulls on all our heartstrings when he comes into the office. We call him Uncle now.
The long, frustrating experience has taken a toll. We've built nothing together, she says. We lived without children. We had no child. Then we too had to live separately. Our caring didn't get to flourish. Newlywed dreams may be out of reach, but new hopes, they say, will help finally build a life together. Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
Highway 99 southbound in Delta will be closed through rush hour tomorrow morning after a commercial truck hit an overpass this morning. It happened at Highway 17A. Transportation staff are now checking to see how badly it's damaged. Drivers heading south through the Massey Tunnel are being diverted onto Highway 17A. An update is expected at 4 a.m. tomorrow. Since December 2021, 20 overpasses have been hit in BC. The promenade along the White Rock Pier is closed until further notice after it was damaged by construction crews this morning. Take a look. The city says an old concrete sign was being removed near the pier entrance when the backhoe being used to lift it backed into the pier and broke through some planks. There it is. No one was hurt, thankfully. The pier was also damaged, but it later reopened. We have an update to a story we brought you in May about the possibility of cameras in an Airbnb on the Sunshine Coast. A group of friends were celebrating a 30th birthday party at an Airbnb in Sechelt when they said they found cameras hidden in power outlets in the washrooms. Now police say that while the units looked suspicious, they were not, in fact, cameras. Sunshine Coast RCMP says the units were removed and sent to the laboratory for forensic and functional examination. On June 30th, Sunshine Coast Mounties were advised they were in fact electrical outlets and did not contain cameras, lenses, or any type of storage or recording devices. The complainants, the homeowner, and Airbnb have all been notified of this finding. The City of Vancouver and the Squamish Nation have now signed a new agreement that commits the pair to following Squamish principles when working together toward reconciliation. That includes listening and engaging, learning the advice of the Squamish, and protecting the nation's rights and titles. It's non-binding legally. The agreement replaces an old one that was signed in 2010 before the city implemented a strategy toward the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
What happened the other day was it just crumbled.
An ancient tree falls down in Stanley Park. We're going to take you there right after this. And hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream. Thanks for being here. More than 200 cyclists recently conquered all three North Vancouver mountains, Seymour, Grouse, and Cypress. They did it to support children with heart conditions and their families. BC Children's Hospital's very first baby to receive a heart transplant was there to support the riders.
This day is really special because the Triple Crown for Heart is basically raising money for the cardiac unit at Children's Hospital, and because I have the heart transplant, the cardiac unit is very close to me. That money helps buy machines to do all the tests and stuff.
It is a fundraiser for BC Children's Hospital Foundation for inpatients in the cardiac unit, as well as Children's Heart Network, and they send heart kids to camp through Zajac Camp. There are 2 heart camps during the summer, and so these are 2 excellent foundations that we give money to. And the route actually is supposed to mimic the path of a heartbeat. So it's the 3 parts of the heartbeat, and we have 3 mountains that these very courageous riders ride up.
It was great. It was such a great time. I think it was just nice to see everybody out in the sunshine, going for a good cause.
The fundraising and the cause, that always creates some good motivation.
I have a genetic heart disease, so I was diagnosed in 2016 and told never to exercise again. And through medication and my doctor's help, I can still coach and ride, and so I do this every year.
Come join us. Next year, we're going to have it again, 3rd Saturday of July, 2024. And if you want to donate, you can go to www.triplegroundforheart.ca and look for our contribute page.
The second day of the North American Indigenous Games in Halifax is now over. Thousands of athletes from across North America are competing in the week-long event. Team BC has been busy with hundreds of athletes representing various cities and Indigenous groups in basketball, soccer, wrestling, swimming, and as you can see, softball. These games go until Friday, with the closing ceremony held in downtown Halifax on Friday night. And all the best to them. An ancient western red cedar has fallen in Stanley Park. This tree is believed to have been centuries old, but had reached the end of its long life. And some experts say the old growths are facing increasing stress because of drought conditions, climate change, and pollution.
I'm standing in the base of this ancient western red cedar that has just collapsed. Now, you can see what was holding the tree up for years was this very rotten wood. Now, this is called heart rot. So the tree was suffering from this for many, many years, and you can see it's actually hollow through most of the tree. Now, what happened the other day was it just crumbled. All the weight of that tree at this base, it just gave way and collapsed. And now it's sort of just crumbled into a million little puzzle pieces, and it's lying on the floor. What's sad about this tree falling, it had its original spires. It's a candelabra cedar, so it has many, many different tops. Each one of those tops is indicative of a drought summer. So you're looking at like an 800-ish-year-old tree with 10 different tops to it. There was a drought, killed the top of the tree, and then the next year it puts up a new shoot. So what this tree looked like before it fell, it had a million little tops shooting into the blue sky.
It's always sad to see these veterans go into the next stage of their life, which is on the ground as a nurse log for the next generation of trees.
Although they live for 800 years, they are under incredible stress in Stanley Park. We've had many droughts. It's now a whole lesson in forest succession and how these trees do die, and also the state that we find these trees in today. The average summer is a drought. We were going through a bug outbreak. We live beside a major urban center, so we have pollution. What killed this tree, it's hard to know exactly, but it's probably a combination of all those factors. And when a tree falls, does anyone hear it, right? Well, if a tree falls and no one tells the news, it maybe doesn't make the news, right?
There's a live shot of the Port of Vancouver, once again behind picket lines tonight. Darius Madavi will have your BC-wide weather forecast right after this.
A long-awaited overcast sky holds promise for a community desperate for rain.
So where are these clouds coming from? Yeah, we're gonna have good rainfall tonight. Fog. Yeah, could be. It's like rain.
After the driest August on record, any rainfall would be good. The summer-long drought has pushed Tofino's water system to the limit. 1 week ago, local businesses faced a threat water lines would be shut off because the town was about to run dry.
The mayor came to my door in the morning and said, Al, we've got a problem. There's a water crisis, and we're going to need you to shut down. And I was pleased to do so.
With the help of truckloads of water from neighboring Ucluelet, a disaster was averted. But now the mayor has another problem, critics of how he handled the situation.
On Monday, August the 24th, I believe.
John, I think you have let this community down. I do believe there ought to be an inquiry into how this was managed.
But everybody thinks our town's closed right now. So is our town closed, or are we open for business?
The mayor makes no apologies.
Unfortunately, this is the first night in how long? This town was not protected properly for fire. And at that point, we were in a state of emergency because we couldn't provide basic protection that is necessary.
About 250 people came out to a public meeting that was clearly split on the mayor's response to the water shortage. Some praised him.
And I don't think it's fair right now to blame all you guys for this shit, because it's been happening for years and it just happened to fall on your shoulders at your time. I feel sorry for you.
The immediate crisis has passed, but clearly conserving water is still a priority.
When you check into local resorts, you get a room key, but you also get a pitch to take a short shower and not flush the toilet too much. And in restaurants, meals come on paper plates and drinks come in plastic cups because neither has to be washed. Efforts to modernize the local water system will be complete next summer. A new pipeline will soon connect Tofino's water system to another 45 million litre tank at the top of a nearby mountain.
All the work on the highway is done, and we've got about 150 meters of pipe up to the reservoir, and it's complete.
In the meantime, the tourist-dependent community is open for business, but getting the message out will take time and extra effort. Belle Puri, CBC News, Tofino.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. CBC Vancouver is proud to be the exclusive media partner of the 35th Annual Vancouver Queer Film Festival, August 10th to 20th. For festival program and tickets, visit outonscreen.com/VQFF. And CBC Radio 1 presents the CBC Massey Lectures, The Age of Insecurity, with filmmaker, writer, and political organizer Astra Taylor on September 22nd.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Time for our BC-wide weather forecast with climate and science specialist Darius Madavi. And Darius, we had some better news, you'd say, for our wildfire danger today?
Thanks, Dan. And it looks like things are looking even better across the province than they were yesterday. And yesterday's fire danger map was already pretty good, but we've seen the danger come down even more across most of the province. Three things I want to highlight on this map. First of all, in the northeast, nothing but low and very low fire danger. Now, this is where we're seeing the biggest fire in BC's history, the Donny Creek fire. And having low and very low fire danger does not mean that we're going to be able to put out that fire, but it does mean that it'll slow the spread, and that's nothing but good news. If we move to the central parts of the province, fire danger is still high, even extreme in places. This is where we've seen a lot of new fire starts over the last week or two. So it's not great that fire danger is remaining elevated there. I am worried that it's going to start to come back up, and we're going to see fire danger increase over the next few days, which would make those fires even more dangerous. But for now, we're looking okay. I also want to highlight the last thing. The only other place we see high and extreme fire danger is in the lower mainland and over Victoria, and it seems like that is here to stay. We can see that this high pressure system has set up in the Pacific with this ridge of high pressure extending into the south of the province, which is why we've seen high temperatures today, and we'll keep seeing those through the end of the week. This ridge is going to grow into the north of the province, which means sunny skies across the entire province. We can see that start to take hold tomorrow. We'll see even sunnier skies in the northwest later on in the week. Smoke in the northeast tomorrow, primarily because of all those fires, but staying contained to that region for the most part. Nothing but sun in the south of the province. A few clouds on the coast, but really it's just going to be a sunny forecast, and I'm going to get tired of repeating myself this week because that's going to be the story for the entire week. You can see here in Vancouver, we do see nothing but sun. If I were to show you this same forecast for the parts of the interior, it would look very similar. Nothing but cloud well away, and then just high temperatures, a few degrees above seasonal close to the water, and then well above seasonal inland. Back to you, Dan.
Captain consistent so far this week. Well done, Darius. Thanks very much. And that is your late news for Tuesday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news anytime, please check our website, as you do, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. It starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Have a good night.